Some stories don't crash into your life. They settle in slowly, like fog you don't notice until everything feels heavier. That's what the past few weeks have felt like around Savannah Guthrie, both on screen and off. Viewers noticed it first in the pauses, the softer delivery, the way her smile sometimes arrived a second late. Behind the scenes, colleagues spoke in lowered voices, protective and unsure. Then came the moment that shifted everything. During a seemingly ordinary morning broadcast, the energy changed. Jenna Hager, steady and warm as ever, looked into the camera and chose honesty over comfort. It wasn't dramatic or rehearsed. It felt like the kind of truth you speak when holding it any longer becomes unbearable. In that instant, the studio wasn't a studio anymore. It was a shared space of vulnerability, where friendship outweighed format and silence finally gave way to something real. Jenna, at 44, unfiltered. At 44, Jenna Hager stands at a crossroads familiar to many women, though few experience it so publicly. She has lived long enough to understand that reinvention isn't about escape, but about alignment. Gone is the need to prove she belongs. What remains is clarity, humor, and a willingness to say the quiet parts aloud. That morning, she didn't speak as a former first daughter or a television host. She spoke as a friend who had witnessed both resilience and fracture up close. Her voice carried warmth, but also resolve. Jenna has always worn her heart openly, yet this felt different. There was intention behind every word, an awareness that truth can heal even when it complicates. She wasn't offering spectacle. She was offering context. In doing so, she reminded viewers that maturity doesn't mean having fewer feelings. It means knowing which ones are worth honoring out loud. A friendship forged in unsteady times. Savannah Guthrie and Jenna Hager didn't become close through convenience. Their bond was shaped during a period when the show itself was finding new footing, and both women were navigating personal growth alongside professional change. Savannah brought steadiness and principle, the kind that anchors a room. Jenna brought openness and ease, a reminder that levity and depth can coexist. Together, they created something that felt genuine in a landscape often accused of polish over truth. Off camera, their connection deepened through shared conversations about motherhood, faith, doubt, and expectation. They learned when to challenge each other and when to simply listen. That's the kind of friendship that doesn't need constant affirmation. It's tested quietly, in moments of exhaustion or grief. Jenna's words made it clear that this wasn't about revelation for attention. It was about honoring a history that deserved to be acknowledged with care and respect. Savannah, strength and silence. Savannah Guthrie has built a career on clarity and composure, often carrying the weight of difficult conversations with measured grace. But strength, when practiced too long without rest, can become isolating. Those close to Savannah have long understood that behind her calm presence is a woman who feels deeply and reflects often. Recent months asked more of her than the public could see. Loss has a way of reshaping even the most grounded people, not by breaking them, but by forcing new questions to the surface. Savannah didn't retreat dramatically. She showed up, did the work, and carried on. Yet grief doesn't always ask permission. It lingers quietly, waiting for safe company. Jenna's acknowledgement didn't expose Savannah. It protected her. It reminded viewers that privacy and honesty are not opposites. Sometimes they are partners in survival, walking side by side until the ground feels steady again. The weight of shared history. What made Jenna's words resonate wasn't any single detail, but the recognition of shared history. Long friendships collect layers: laughter, misunderstandings, unspoken agreements, moments of grace, and moments of restraint. Jenna spoke to that complexity without dissecting it. She acknowledged that both women had carried things they didn't always know how to set down. In doing so, she reframed the narrative away from speculation and toward humanity. This wasn't about secrets. It was about understanding that people evolve, and relationships must evolve with them. Viewers weren't invited to judge or decode. They were invited to witness empathy in motion, the kind that says, "I see you, even when you don't say anything." That kind of acknowledgement doesn't weaken a bond. It strengthens it. It allows room for rest, forgiveness, and continued growth without rewriting the past. Jenna's story beyond the surname. Jenna Bush Hager has spent her adult life balancing visibility with authenticity. Born into a name that opened doors and invited scrutiny, she learned early that identity is something you build, not inherit. Her journey through education, teaching, writing, and media reflects curiosity more than ambition. She's spoken openly about missteps, learning curves, and moments of doubt. That openness is not strategy, it's survival. At 44, Jenna no longer narrates her life to manage perception. She tells stories to connect. Her evolution from contributor to trusted voice didn't happen overnight. It came through listening, stumbling, and choosing sincerity over performance. That's why her words about Savannah landed the way they did. They weren't calculated. They were consistent with who Jenna has become. A woman comfortable enough in herself to speak truth without needing control over how it's received. Grief, without a script. Grief doesn't arrive with instructions, especially when it unfolds alongside responsibility. Savannah's experience is one many recognize but few articulate well, continuing forward while carrying something unfinished inside. There is no clean narrative for that kind of loss, no dramatic turning point, just a gradual reshaping of priorities, energy, and patience. Jenna's acknowledgement created space for that reality without demanding resolution. It didn't rush healing or assign meaning prematurely. It simply allowed grief to exist without apology. That permission matters. In public life especially, where silence is often misread, honest framing can be an act of kindness. Savannah didn't owe viewers anything beyond her work, but the compassion shown by her colleague reminded audiences that professionalism doesn't erase humanity. It coexists with it, and sometimes the most supportive gesture is letting someone be seen without asking them to explain. Public reaction and private truths. The response was immediate and intense, as public reactions often are. Some praised the honesty. Others questioned timing. That tension says more about our appetite for certainty than it does about the moment itself. Truth shared gently can still feel disruptive in a culture accustomed to spectacle. But not everything meaningful fits into neat conclusions. Jenna didn't claim to resolve anything. She named a feeling and stood beside a friend. In doing so, she shifted the focus from conjecture to compassion. The conversation moved away from headlines and toward something quieter. Empathy. That's harder to monetize, but far more enduring. Savannah's silence afterward wasn't absence. It was agency. She chose when and how to speak next, supported rather than overshadowed. In a media world obsessed with immediacy, that restraint felt almost radical. And perhaps that was the point. What endures? When the noise fades. When the moment passes and the studio lights dim, what remains is not controversy, but connection. Jenna Bush Hager's words will not be remembered for shock value. They'll be remembered for tone, for choosing care over caution and honesty over polish. Savannah Guthrie's story continues, shaped by faith, family, and the quiet resilience she's always embodied. Their friendship, imperfect and enduring, reflects something many people recognize in their own lives. We carry one another through seasons, sometimes silently, sometimes out loud. Not every truth needs to be explained fully to be valid. Some only need to be honored. At 44, Jenna showed that growth isn't about reinvention alone. It's about responsibility to the people who've stood beside you. And in that shared moment of openness, viewers weren't watching television. They were witnessing trust, rare, human, and quietly brave.